Do you ever wonder what separates top CEOs and leaders from average leaders? It's what they read. What if I told you that reading just 5 books could transform your leadership and your decision making skills? Would you believe me? Listen, stick around and I will prove it. There's a saying, and I'm not sure who coined this phrase, but there's a saying that leaders are readers. There is a saying that leaders are readers. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase or not, but when I heard that phrase, it made me step back and think of why that phrase would be significant, why that phrase would be important. And leaders are readers because there's so much going on around us and there's so much information available that the only way to really disseminate it and to get it out to the masses without overwhelming an individual is to put it in a book, because that book can reach people that you may never reach. I know we are in the age of video and audio, and you can record and produce a work and send it out. You know, we have audiobooks, but the best way to disseminate information that is hefty is to put it in a book. You could put that information into a book, and when somebody consumes it, it can transform their lives. Now, this is not theory that I'm sharing with you today. I am a reader, and reading has actually transformed my life. It has transformed the way I lead. And when I was first introduced to leading and reading, it wasn't at the same time, but when I discovered, wait a minute, there are books out there that if I eat these, if I feast on them, if I read them, when I say eat them, I'm not literally talking about eating them. I'm talking about consuming them, consuming the content inside of them. If I consume this content, it can alter the way I think, then I need more books. I need more books because I can't possibly know everything. I can't possibly do everything. But if I can tap into some people who have gone where I want to go, who have done the things that I want to do, then my life will be 10 times better if I read what they wrote. So I can put into practice the things that they are practicing, the things that they have laid out in their books. And so I have a list here of 5 books. They are written down. And in the video, I'll put like a graphic up of the book so you can see them. But these 5 books are essential to every leader. And why they're essential is I'll go through it in the video, but you'll see more why each one of these books are relevant. And so the first book on the list is Vivid Vision. Vivid Vision, a remarkable tool for aligning your business around a shared vision of the future. This book is by Cameron Herold. And this book is necessary for every CEO and leader to read, because without a vision, people perish. It is your perspective, it is your line of sight that allows you to go the distance. There's a saying that leaders are the vision casters for their team. That if you can cast a great vision for your team, then you can accomplish great things, right? And so I love the book Vivid Vision because it speaks about visioning in a way that I have not experienced before. And it speaks about visioning in a way where you don't write the vision and then forget about it. You write the vision and you read it and you reread it and your team reads it and they reread it until the vision is complete, right? Because you are reminded constantly of what it is that you have sought out to do. Now, while you're visioning, you don't say who's going to do what. That's not your job to figure out who's going to do what in what time and all of those things, because that would be too overwhelming. But when you share this vision, people are able to grab a hold of it and they can see where they fit in, where their significance lies within this vision. And many times, one mistake that I see leaders make is how they don't show those that they're leading how they make an impact to the team, right? Many times as leaders, we drop the ball by not allowing our teammates to see their significance through the vision that we have casted. Because I don't know about you, but the way that I was groomed in leading was that people were irreplaceable. And with the mindset and a mentality of people always being replaceable, you can forget to talk to somebody about how significant they are to the work that is being done. In one of the organizations I used to work for, they had this phrase that said that appreciation or a lack of appreciation to an employee is like unpaid wages. So when you don't demonstrate to the people that you're working with their significance, you're shorting them in value, like you're not giving them the value that's due to them. And so when you read Vivid Vision, it takes you through the process of visioning, of thinking large enough, of thinking far enough out into the future, and then stepping back so the vision's not too large that it's not able for you to grasp it. But you're able to go 20 years into the future, 15 years into the future, 10 years into the future, 5 years into the future, 3 years into the future. You're able to go out into the future far enough to dream big enough, but then short enough so that the vision can begin to come to pass. And so I definitely recommend that you go ahead and grab this book and read this book. And if you're going to grab the book, the link is in my description for all the books that I'm going to share today. So you can go to the description and you can click the link and go ahead and purchase your copy. But I think every CEO, every leader needs to read these books, because as you are casting your vision, you are going to set yourself up for success. You're going to set your team up for success when you are vivid with this vision. Okay, the book number 2 on my list is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that's a classic by Dale Carnegie. If you have not read that book, it is a must read. And it's not read it once. Like these books that I'm giving you, this list is not a read this book once and it's done. I think that in order to fully digest a book, you must read it multiple times. And there are books on this list that I read every year or multiple times per year. And the reason I do that is to position myself well, to remind myself of what the books are saying and the principles that I have garnered from the book that I'm able to implement into leading, into my life, into the work that I do. And so it takes on average a person 7 times of hearing something to even actually realize that they've heard it. And so you reading a book one time is not going to take you to the level that you need to be on, but your continual pursuit of learning, your desire to be positioned as a student for life is what's going to ensure that your leadership continues to go higher and higher and higher every single year. Okay, so book number 2, like I said, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. When I first got into the leadership game, I didn't think that it was important to build relationships with the people on your team. I was taught that the people that you work with are the people you work with, and that there should be a separation between relationships at work and your personal relationships. And what I discovered is I work with people. And because I work with people, people were meant to relate. We were meant for relationship. And so when we try to keep the people we work with at a distance, and I'm not talking about being inappropriate, I'm not talking about not having proper boundaries and guidelines, I'm not talking about not having appropriate protocol. But what I am saying is that when you are working with people, you have to understand that people want to work with people that they like. Nobody wants to work for someone that they don't like. And the way that you build the liking, and not an inappropriate liking, but the way that you build a liking where somebody is willing to do some things for you, they are willing to stick around and to be committed to the vision that you have cast, is by creating a culture and an environment that is friendly and that is built upon influence, right? So you have to understand the influence that you carry. You have to understand how to have a friendly disposition. Now, are there leaders out there who lead by fear and who talk down to their employees? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do they get work out of their people? Absolutely. But does that mean that that's the way that you have to do it? It doesn't. You can decide that you can create an environment of safety. You can create an environment of love. I think oftentimes we don't use the word love enough when it comes to work, because we want to separate that. We feel like that's a personal thing. But when you love the people, the work will be that much easier, right? When you're demonstrating love to people. And again, I'm not talking about anything inappropriate. Don't go nowhere and say, like Terry told me, I had to love on everybody and be inappropriate. Don't do that. But what I am saying is when you show up as a person who loves people, because I used to say, listen, I don't like people, blah, blah, blah. When you do that, you shut off your ability to influence, because you're not going to go from a good place. You're not going to go from a place that's pure. You're going to go from a place that's toxic, it's detrimental, and it will cut off your resources. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. You are able to get exponentially more done when you can work through other people to get the things done. And so how to win friends and influence people is a must read, okay? Number 3 on my list is the 12-week year. Get done in 12 weeks. Get more done in 12 weeks than others do in 12 months, okay? This is by Brian Moran and Michael Lexington. This is one of the books I read every year, multiple times a year. This book is all about how to execute to get things done as a leader. And when you understand how to execute, you can help your people execute. Many times we are not seeing the level of productivity that we could because we don't know how to execute. When your people don't know how to execute, when you don't know how to execute, you will not get the results you want, the results you need, and the results that you are all capable of. But as you dive into the 12-week year, it's going to show you how to shed a lot of the distractions that are coming up against you and preventing you from producing what you're capable of. And so I recommend reading this book multiple times a year. It's that good. Number 4 on the list. Oh, I love this book. It's The Fearless Organization, Creating Psychological Safety in the Workplace for Learning, Innovation, and Growth. It's by Amy C. Edmondson. When I read this book, I said, if every organization, if every CEO, if every leader does not read this book, it's crazy how we don't necessarily prioritize psychological safety in the workplace, and it's not generally a topic. We prioritize, and this was a phrase in an organization I worked for. It was, you got to put people's feet to the fire. And that phrase, put people's feet to the fire, meant that either they're going to fix it or you're going to fix it for them. And your fixing it for them is getting a replacement, right? It was such a toxic culture. I don't want to put anybody's feet to anybody's fire. What I want to do is create an environment that calls you into the best version of yourself. I want to create an environment that calls you into the best version of yourself. As a CEO, as a leader, you, if you're anything like me, want to create an environment that calls the people who are a part of your team into the best version of themselves. And it does not happen instantaneously. Transformation is a process, but you have to be willing to put some standards in place within your organization. You need to put some cultural constructs together that allow you to cultivate and foster an environment that calls the more out of people. And psychological safety has to be a part of it. Now, if you have never heard of psychological safety, then this book is for you. The number one need that we all have, we need to be safe. When we feel safe, we can go on to take care of the other items on the list. But when we don't feel safe, we cannot think clearly. A lot of times, mistakes are made because people don't feel safe. People are not performing at their best because they don't feel safe. When you drop into the part of your brain that is all about fight or flight, you don't have time to really process information. And so when psychological safety is neglected, what happens is decisions that could have been made and well thought out are not made. It's as if it's a knee-jerk reaction because the people are fighting for their lives. Psychological safety needs to be instituted into every organization, into families, into communities, into conversations, right? When it's instituted and it is a part of the fabric and a part of the culture, the decisions that are made are analyzed much better and they produce much better results because people feel safe enough to do a thing. They feel safe enough to take the necessary steps to go the distance to make sure that that vivid vision that you see as the leader is able to be carried out. So that is a must-read book. And number 5 on the list is Leadership is Language. This is by L. David Marquette. Get this book, read it, okay? How we say something matters. I remember thinking that I could say something in any way that I wanted to. But you can't. People are going to interpret what you're saying. People are going to be off put by what you say. People are going to make decisions based off of what you say. By our words, we're justified. And by our words, we are condemned. Your words create an atmosphere. It creates an environment that will either foster growth or it will cut off the growth. And if you want to see your workforce, those who are working with you, your teammates, be more productive, you have to understand the language of leadership. You have to understand that a slight tweak in the words that you say make all the difference. And so when I learned this, it changed how I approached what I said. It caused me to think more about what I would say before I would say it. There's a gentleman that says the worst time to think about what you're going to say is in the moment that you're going to say it. Because you're fumbling all over your words. You are not thinking clearly. You have not thought out far enough into the future in order to grab a hold of the words that are going to get you the best outcome. Your word choice is going to get you an outcome. You get to choose what type of outcome that is. It can get you a grade A outcome, or it can get you a grade F outcome. You get to decide by understanding that you're leading with your language, your tonality, all that comes out of you is setting the tone for how people are going to show up. This book, listen, when I read this book, I said, this book talks about how a ship captain who logically knew, like, this is unsafe, took his team. He killed his whole team. He killed his whole team. Grown adults on a ship died, even though they knew they were going into dangerous water. They knew that the outcome was not going to be very positive, and they had multiple opportunities to make a different decision, but they perished. They died because of the language that was being used and because they did not feel safe in that environment. So I urge you to get these books. The link again is in the description. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts as you're reading these books. I want you to reach out to me and tell me what you're thinking as you're reading these books and how you're going to use them to transform your leadership. Listen, I will see you in another video. Bye for now.